Hello there. This is Kenny Williamson, and have a little podcast here today that you might be interested in. And as you can see, my little picture I have here for you, it says, "Have you seen me, the little green man?" So, if you're wondering what that is, I'm going to tell you. What this has to do with is some demonic activity that I wanted to tell you about. And the reason I want to tell you about it, I think that it's really interesting what's happened here recently. Um, what got started with this little green man thing here is many years ago when I was a kid, my mother told me and my friends a story about a little green man. Now, I put that information in this book right here. This book called The Haunting of Virginia Crim is about my mother. Her maiden name was Virginia Crim. And while she was growing up, her entire life, basically, she had lots of run-ins with these little demonic, they're demons, is what I think. She she thought that she lived in a haunted house, and she called them all ghosts. And so she had all these different stories, ghost stories, if you will. And I wrote these things down. It took me years and years to do it, but this is a book of everything that was written down. Now, one of the stories that's in this book is a chapter called The Little Green Man. And my mother told the story about the little green man. And she said that the little green man was around 2 foot tall. He was green all over. He had red eyes. He did not have regular feet. He had little hoofs. Okay. So she described all that. And she said that this little green man would follow her around when she was a child. And it never really said anything, never said anything at all, but it would reach out. She said that many times it would just reach like if it was trying to grab you, and she would run away. And of course, anytime that she screamed out or tried to show the little green man to anybody else, it would simply disappear. So she told my grandmother all about the little green man. And the grandmother didn't believe it. So my grandmother did not believe the little green man existed, I guess. Even though there was all kinds of very bizarre things happening in this house that they lived in, um, nobody seemed to believe it. Now, my mother said that as she grew older, before she moved out and got married, um, the little green man kind of switched off of her onto her little brother. And then it started messing around with her little brother, and he was always screaming and crying, talking about the little green man. Um, the only one time my mother claims that this little green man actually reached out and was able to scratch her leg, and that she had felt something on her leg burning outside, and she looked down, and the little green man was there, and he had his hand on her leg. And when she pulled away, it left some marks. She then went inside and told my grandmother this, and the grandmother said, "Oh, well, you just hurt yourself playing. You've either scratched it on a sticker bush or on a board, something. Who knows what? But you've scratched your leg playing outside, and now you're blaming it on the little green man. And I don't believe the little green man exists, so don't believe it." So it's an interesting story, and it's in this book. Now, by the way, you can get this book on Amazon if you're wanting it. Just type in Kenny Williamson on Amazon, and it'll show you my books, or you can find them on my websites either. So this happened in the state of Missouri many years ago, because my mother died. She died 10 years ago, probably, and she died in her 60s. And this is what happened when she was like 10 years old. So it's been a while. It didn't just happen yesterday or anything. So she told me all about the little green man. What's interesting is many years later, my mother-in-law, who ex-mother-in-law, now she has passed away as well. She told me some very similar stories. And at the time, she didn't want them mentioned to anybody. But towards the end of her life, she said, you know what? You can write these things down. Just don't put my name on it, that I'm the one that told you this. So I wrote another book called Demons Among Us. And this has to do with all of the true stories that my ex mother in law told me. And what's very interesting in here is she told me a story of a man she knew, a pastor, and he said that he had been tormented by, you guessed it, little green man. So his story goes something like this, and it's in this book, and I call it the little green man resurrected. Okay. So his story goes something like this. He's laying in bed at nights, different times, and this little green man, about 2 foot tall, with red eyes and hooves, shows up and is standing on his dresser. And it then proceeds to jump from his dresser onto his bed. He said this thing would jump on his bed, like a little trampoline, I guess. So this thing likes to jump around on his bed, and at times it would stop and it would put its hands on his stomach and it would shake his stomach. This guy, was not a slim, petite guy or anything. He wasn't skinny. So he had a fairly large belly, is what it was described as. And this thing, this little green man, would jump and it would grab a hold of his belly and it would shake it. So my mother-in-law told me that this had went on for several years. And apparently he told some people this. Of course, nobody believed him. And whether it had solely to do with the little green man or some other demonic things that were bothering him, apparently he lost his mind. Somewhere in all this, he lost his mind and tried to commit suicide. And so, I don't know if it was all spiritual, like a spiritual warfare type deal that drove him to it, or there was something else. But it's very interesting that he was bothered by little green man. Okay. So then my mother-in-law tells me that one night she was laying in bed and two of these creatures show up. Okay. She said, now when she described them to me, she did not say they were green. She said they were tannish red, but she described this same creature about 18 inches to 2 foot tall, little red eyes, little hooves for feet. And they showed up one night and she said the bed was shaking and she woke up and these two little things were jumping on her bed, jumping. So this is another story of things jumping on beds. And she prayed and she asked, rebuke these things in the name of Jesus, and they disappeared. She said she had never seen them prior to that, and she never saw them again. So they were just kind of a fluke deal. And I had never told her anything about what my mother had seen. She was just telling me these stories one day. And I was like, wow, well, that's pretty interesting because my mother saw a little green man that just never said anything, just followed her around, possibly scratched her. But other than that, didn't do much else. So what really brings this whole thing around, which I think is interesting, is I have a gentleman who contacted me through my email, and he had bought both of these books right here. Okay. Now this guy's actually a flat earth guy, and he bought and really likes my flat earth book. Okay. Which this is a very good book too. You can get it on Amazon or the website, but he actually bought these two books as well. And what amazed him, if you will, we'll say amazed, is he contacted me and he said he just couldn't believe it. He said, I was reading your books and ran across the little green man story. I said, okay. He said, what's amazing about this whole thing, he said, when he was growing up, he said he grew up in Virginia in an old farmhouse and he had a brother. And he said his brother swore up and down that in the top part of this farmhouse, he said there was like an attic with crawl spaces, some kind of a crawl space up there, and they used it for storage. He said that his brother would always see. Guess what? Guess what he saw? Can you guess? A little green man up in the crawl space. He said the brother said this little green man was about, again, 2 foot tall, green. Said he never said anything, never really did much, would just stare at him. So he would open up these crawl spaces or whatever he's doing up there, and out pops little green man. And so the little green man would just sit there and stare at you. Now, I can personally only imagine, something like this, standing in a closet or something staring at me. I would probably be like, probably pretty scared. Now, see, I have never seen anything like this. And this is an artist rendering of what I think it possibly could look like based on descriptions. Now, everybody that has seen this little green man that I have found out about, they're all deceased. So I can't have anybody draw me a picture like I wished I had have done. I wished I had told my mother, I wish I had said, hey, draw it out so I can visualize what you saw. But based on the description, 18 inches to 2 foot tall, all green, red eyes, and hooves for feet. So if you do a Google search and look for something like that, you will come up with this little guy right here, and he is called a faun. And they also have one called a satyr. And this is like Greek mythology type stuff. Okay. So makes you wonder, is it really mythology or is it demonic? I believe it's demonic. But so this guy's brother saw the little green man himself when he was growing up. He told his parents, he told his brother what he was seeing, and guess what? Nobody believed him because they never do. And it just so happens this brother apparently had, a run-in with the law, ended up getting arrested, had problems with alcohol, possibly drugs. And the guy who told me this, he said, looking back now, he said, we never believed what he had to say about this little green man. He said, looking back now, I think he might have been telling the truth. After he read my books and realized that there are other people who have seen this little green man and is exactly described as what his brother described. And, his brother was in and out of trouble and ended up dying because of his lifestyle, apparently. And, it boils down to, was he being tormented physically and spiritually by some type of demon? Did this little demon manifest itself as a little green man? Okay. Apparently it did. And why are these demons showing up as little green men? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. How many people have seen these that have never mentioned it? I don't know. It's funny because, I put it in the book and it's a far out story. And I've told my friends and told other people what my mother claims she saw. And people are like, ha, 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 a little green man. You mean like from Mars, a Martian? I'm like, no, this is hoofs. He's not in a space suit. He's nothing like a little green Martian. but he is a little green man. And, so now going on basically between my mother, this pastor, my mother-in-law, and now this guy's brother, I've heard of about 4 stories of something very similar to this. Now, only really 3 if you want to call them green with red eyes. The other one, like I said, my mother-in-law saw the same thing, only it was reddish brown and not green. Okay, but same description. So my question to you, if you're listening to this, is have you ever seen a little green man? Have you seen something like that? If you have, and you'd like to tell me about it, please send me an email at truthseekers2012@gmail.com. Of course, you can also contact me through any of my websites. I've got itsflatbro.com, and there's a contact form on that website, and truthseekersministry.org, and there's a contact on there as well, and it will send it to my email. So, have you ever seen anything like this? That's a good question. If you have seen something like this and, you'd like to talk about it, or at least tell me about it where I could tell somebody about it, let me know. Contact me, please, because I believe that people are going to start seeing some more of this stuff. We're getting down to the end times. Okay. We're getting down to the end times right now, biblically, I believe. And I think that we're going to start seeing all kinds of demonic stuff happening, manifesting themselves in all kinds of different ways. Now, are you necessarily going to see this? Maybe not. I don't know what you're going to see, but I do think that these little things here are going to be showing up a whole lot more often, and they're probably going to be manifesting themselves as aliens, would be my guess. I have a feeling that there's going to be lots more people seeing aliens from outer space, is that's what they're going to think they see. Because, right now in the news, you've got, alien supposedly ships being seen constantly. Constantly, they're showing something up in the air, claiming that it's aliens. I don't believe it's aliens. It's fallen angels. It's all part of the deception, illusion to get your eyes off of God and to get it somewhere else. So I believe you're going to be seeing a lot of that kind of stuff in the very near future. And a lot of people are seeing it. They're recording it. They've got it all. They've got stuff out there all the time. And what's funny is even way back many, many years ago, and it's in this book here. My mother was seeing all kinds of stuff like this. She saw a little green man. She saw something that looked like an ape man, which, could be construed as a Bigfoot, which, I believe also is demonic. I don't believe it's a flesh and blood creature. She saw something like that on the roof of their house more than once. All kinds of manifestations showed up to her and her siblings. Now, one of the things that showed up whenever she was living in Oklahoma was a spaceship. She saw a spaceship, land in the field across from our house and just sit out there for a while and then take off. And she's described it as, cylindrical, silver, and she said it had portholes on it and you could see things moving around inside the windows. And then it just took off. So, did she see an alien spacecraft from outer space? I do not believe so. I believe that she saw a demonic manifestation of some kind. She'd been seeing it her whole life and she died seeing it. And, up into her, before she died, I would call her on the phone and, she didn't go crazy like a lot of these people have done. They've seen a lot of stuff like this and they literally seem like they went out of their mind. My mother-in-law, not my mother-in-law, my mother, she didn't go out of her mind. It's like she coped with it differently. She just kind of accepted the fact that it was there. And, I would call her on the phone, like I was saying, and she would say that things are flying around the room. Things are flying off shelves. Things are flying into the kitchen floor, spoons, all kinds of stuff. And she just sat there. She would just sit there and say, she would yell at it. She'd gripe at it. And she'd be like, "Hey, stop that," or "Settle down in there." That's the kind of stuff she would do. That's how she coped with it. She was just used to it, and she would just tell it to settle down. And she went on about her merry way, and then some people have seen this stuff, kind of like the pastor that my mother-in-law told me about. He goes off the deep end and loses his mind. Other people possibly see this stuff, like maybe, and I'm not saying this is for sure the reason, but maybe this guy's brother, you know, maybe he turned to drugs and alcohol because he was being tormented by this stuff and nobody believed him. And he didn't have anywhere else to turn to it. I don't know. But if that's happening to you, or somebody, that's seen something like this, please let me know, because I think it's very, very interesting that this stuff has happened. Like, my mom saw this thing in Missouri. It turns up again at the pastor's place in Oklahoma. Then my mother-in-law sees something similar in Arkansas. And then this guy that I know, who I was telling you about here, his brother saw this thing in Virginia. So this thing gets around. Okay. It's kind of like Bigfoot. Gets around. That's why I don't believe Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature. Okay, because you can see this guy, this Bigfoot. Okay, you can see Bigfoot in Arkansas in the woods, and he's gone. Next thing you know, he's in Oklahoma in the woods, gone. Then you see him up in the Appalachian Mountains, gone. You see people say, "Well, he was there and he disappeared." Well, flesh and blood animals can't appear and disappear. Okay, neither can little green men. Little green men can't show up in Arkansas and then show up in Virginia and then show up in Oklahoma. They're not walking around. Okay. They're disappearing and reappearing. So that tells me that they're something spiritual. They're demonic. They have to be. So, anyway, I hope you found this thing interesting. Like I said, give me a contact. Contact me if you've seen something like this and would like to share it. Let me know. Anyway, I'm going to leave this up here. So you can think about it. And we're going to go ahead and end this little thing here. So thanks for listening. As always, of course, if you believe in this stuff here, this is scriptural. Okay, there are devils. The Bible mentions it. And there are fallen angels. So if something like this is bothering you, my suggestion would be to pray to God and get saved if you're not already. But you would need to rebuke something like this in the name of Jesus Christ. Okay. These things are scared to death of Jesus Christ. They hate his name. They don't want anything. They don't have anything to do with it. Neither do these so-called aliens. Lots of these aliens that they claim are out there bothering people. These people have said, "Hey, leave me alone in the name of Jesus Christ." And these things disappear. So we all know that if it was really an alien from outer space, it could care less about the name of Jesus Christ. But these aren't aliens from outer space. These are devils from right here under the dome. They're right here with us. That's what I believe. So they're scared to death of the name of Jesus Christ, and for good reason. For good reason. There's power in the name of Jesus Christ. Anyway, thanks for listening. Tune in again for our next one, and God bless you.